Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to day 2 of the Retail Summit 2024 for the rest of our incredible morning session. I'm thrilled to introduce this fantastically glamorous panel of ladies over here to my left, and I will actually be joining them for this one, so I will be moderating this session, which is my absolute great pleasure. Please allow me to introduce, starting from our far right, Melissa Odabash. She needs no introduction. I'm sure all the women in here are very familiar with Melissa's gorgeous swimwear. Next to her, SIMA, again, no introduction required. An absolute cornerstone of the retail industry here in the Middle East. SIMA, it is such an honor to have you with us. Thank you for being here today. And Veronica D'Souza, the founder of CARCEL. Veronica is no longer with CARCEL. She sold the business, but it is an incredible business to hear about. So Veronica will tell us all about that. Before we start, better for you to introduce yourselves and your business rather than me, I think. Otherwise, I'll just talk about Melissa's swimsuits all day long. And no one needs that. If we could have just a couple of lines from each of you to explain who you are and your history.
Melissa Odabash. I live in London. I am a fashion designer who specializes in anything with resort wear. Next year is my 25th year of doing this business. I sell in 70 countries, or 67, I don't really know. And I'm here to try and expand in Dubai, which is a very fast-moving market. And I'm excited to be here with these amazing women on this panel and speak about business.
Thanks, Melissa. SIMA.
Hi, my name is SIMA Ved. I'm the founder and chairwoman of the Apparel Group. It's a retail conglomerate based out of the UAE, but present in 14 countries. We are 2,200 stores strong, with 22,000 people and with 85 plus brands.
And Veronica.
Hi everyone, my name is Veronica. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you to the Retail Summit for the invitation to participate in this glorious panel. I've worked with inclusive business my entire life. I founded 2 different social businesses, and at the center of that was the inclusion of historically and systemically excluded women. The later one was a fashion label. It's a fashion label called CARCEL. And we set up production inside of women's prisons in Thailand and Peru in order to help women sustain themselves, make a living wage, and support their families, and manage to position that in luxury retailers across the world. So I'm all about centering inclusion and equity, but in a way that communicates and brings positivity and power to women.
Great. So we are here to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and inspiring the next generation of retail talent. And we have 3 very different voices and very different positions on this huge subject, which affects companies both internally and externally in how we communicate to customers and to our staff. So I'm going to ask all our panelists, as CEOs and founders, how much of your headspace on a day-to-day basis is taken up with the diversity, equity, and inclusion subject matter? Is it something you have to focus on? Melissa, let's start with you.
Well, I've always been diverse. My whole team, I have about 75 employees, and no one's from the same country. No one's, like, everyone has different, religious beliefs and everything. I've never had a problem with diversity, ever, because and we embrace it. We celebrate everyone when it's their holidays, and if it's Eid, I'm like, please bring in the leftovers. Like, I love, the food. But we celebrate everyone, and that's the way the world is today. Like,
was that a conscious decision to develop?
No, it just was. I used to live in Italy, and it's all about family. All my employees, to me, are friends. I know every single one of them. I know their families, their husbands, if they're ill, if they're not ill. I'm small enough. I'm not as big as their companies. So I think it's very important that to get a good team, you have to embrace where they're from, their background, and then they perform better. It's about inclusion. And same with my models. Like, now the world's so different, and you need to show diversity in models, and my campaign shots have to show diversity, and that's body shapes. None of us are the same body shapes. None of us are the same you know, we come from different countries, especially when I sell in so many different countries, you have to be aware that maybe someone in America is not going to wear what someone in Dubai wears. And yes, it takes up a lot of my day, not my days, but like I'm always self-conscious when I'm designing, like, okay, make sure that you cover something that someone would wear in Italy. It might be a skimpy bikini on an 80-year-old, who knows? I don't know, like India is a different body shape. It's a lot, but it works.
Absolutely. And SIMA, coming at it from a very different position where you're managing an incredible amount of brands and staff and employees, how does diversity and inclusion play into your daily headspace?
So I'll be honest, when you first start off a company, like back in 1996 when we started off, it was all about having comfort. And you had to have the people that you kind of either trusted or you felt were like-minded to have the same work ethic, etc. As the company evolved, we realized that what we need to actually be doing is reflect our customer base. So exactly what Melissa said, you've got to be aware of who you're selling to and have you got the right decision makers or even the right influence within the company, within your staff to help you arrive at those decisions that will benefit the customer. So I can say now, and I will proudly say this, that today we can afford the luxury of diversity. In the early days, it was all about scaling, getting the work done, so there wasn't that much focus on that. But today, it's a conversation that we have in every leadership meeting. We're talking to all our brands about it because we need them to understand, like I said, it's not just about how much hard work they can put in, but the smart work that they can put in.
So how would you advise startups or businesses not at your scale who perhaps can't afford the luxury of diversity? Should diversity be a luxury that we have to afford?
You know, honestly speaking, when you're first starting out, I would say start with that core team that understands you, understands your vision, understands where you want to get to. Once you've got that going, then I think these would come in. It's sad, but okay, in a way, if you're based out of the UAE, it's much easier because this is such a melting pot of nationalities. There's no way you can escape that. So invariably, you will end up having an Egyptian in the team or a Turkish in the team, and it happens, which is great because by default, you end up being diverse, which is fabulous. Might not be the case everywhere else around the world, but here, I think a conscious effort to be diverse would amplify the results that you're looking for, but at I would say, a later stage.
Interesting advice. Thank you, SIMA. Veronica, I know for you it's 100% of your headspace almost, but explain to us how that manifests in your business life.
It's such a good question. So I think I tend to think of the world and business as a vehicle to serve the world instead of the world as, to serve the business. So in that sense, when I think about the world and I think about the systems we've built and where we are and the climate and the inequity we have, I think there are so many movements now that give hope, but they require some systematic changes in society. And historically, women in general have been excluded from those decisions. It's not how it is today, but historically this has been the way. And certain women have been even further excluded. So I think in order to make those transitions that we want to make for all of us and for the future of our businesses, I think it's actually very important that we don't just talk about diversity and equity and inclusion in the workforce, but in the boardrooms, in the management teams, and in all the decision making, because otherwise I think we're going to keep on making, you can call it monochrome decision making, right? And that's what diversity is all about. It's about creating resilience and representation. And I think without representation, you're also just not going to get the younger generation to participate any longer, because it's too clear that we are at the end of, I think, one way of seeing things, and there is this huge demand for everyone to express themselves and be seen and heard. So it takes up a lot of my time and how I work, but it's currently I advise different companies and boards, and I think really it's at the center of equity is power. And if you're willing to change the power structures, you can also allow for equity. If you're not, I think we're going to talk about diversity and inclusion in another box. So that's
So I know you're not involved with CARCEL any longer, but for anyone unfamiliar with the business model, it is fascinating. So can you explain to us how it operates and how you came to develop that business?
Yeah. So I was working with women in East Africa, and I was curious about why women were incarcerated, why they were in prison, because I realized I didn't know anything about it. And I visited a women's prison, spoke to women. I believe very much in an anthropological approach and to learn from everyone. And the women were kind enough to share their stories with me. They were all there because of poverty-related crime, so non-violent crimes. They came from rural communities with low levels of education, and they were all mothers. They were there because they wanted to provide for their children, and they ended up drug trafficking or prostitution or some kind of petty crimes, which got them into prison, and they had to give up their children to an orphanage or relatives. And when they were released, they didn't have any savings, and there's a lot of social stigma, so it was really difficult to get a job. And they ended up back into prison. At the same time, they were crocheting and knitting and doing a lot of things to stay busy. And I'm also an economist as a background. So I also thought there must be a smarter way to participate and to be in the system. And I then set up a supply chain based on living wages and saving accounts and education. Started in Peru because of alpaca wool, to try to make a luxurious brand that was handcrafted and dignifying, because what you also have in rural areas is also the preservation of craft amongst women, which is a luxury. So actually what we had in the prisons, both in Peru and in Thailand, was some of the most talented craftsmanship that exists. And I think seeing that and communicating that to our customers through that supply chain is also a new way to engage customers, and maybe just to make a little link to retail, which is a little bit what we're talking about this conference as well. Some of the things we did was also to not just make the digital passport of the transparent journey, including the wages, the woman who made the clothes. She had her name in every garment, but also her story. So when you basically were buying a garment in a store, the inclusion was not just about the people working in the store, but the people making the garments, but in a dignifying way. And I think there's a lot of power in fashion and communication, because if you can use desirability and beauty to talk about some things that we can change, I think we can change them. If we don't, it will remain some kind of rational, savory kind of vibe, and I don't think that's going to bring about change. So I think mixing exactly communication and fashion and impact has such a strong potential.
Yeah, and we were just hearing about that this morning as well from Vestiaire Collective, a very similar positioning, bringing that joy to the education. So incredible business, incredible vision, thanks for that. And that really illustrates taking a pride in one's work and taking a joy in it, and how you did that by putting the names of the craftswomen in the garments. At the other end of the scale, when it comes to hiring senior management and senior leadership, how hard is it to attract, particularly for SIMA and Melissa, the best talent to the retail industry? How is retail perceived on that scale of doctors, lawyers, accountants? For my kids, YouTubers, that's what they want to be. How do we make retail this attractive career path to get the best talent in? Melissa?
I think everyone is attracted to retail and fashion. It's part of our lifestyle. I find it's a bit daunting because there's so much out there already. So what do you do that's not already out there? But I'm a true believer in it's not about how you were educated. So I never look at people's schooling when I'm hiring. I don't care what school they went to. I look at internships. I look at their background, background in the sense like, did you grow up like working in the community? Did you give back? It's all about hardworking, like you were saying last night. Like it's not an easy business, retail. And I'm always doing talks about, trying to encourage people to believe in themselves and get out there and start whatever their business is, because failure is just, one step to getting to success. So I really believe that this younger generation, because they have social media, so they're bombarded with so much retail already and instant gratification, which you were saying yesterday, that it's not an easy path. It's not, everything takes time. And the longer it takes, the longer you'll keep going. And if it's instant gratification, you want to start a brand and you think it's going to happen overnight, it might because of social media and getting it out there, but it also might fail. And then you give up. So it's better to take baby steps and get there. But it's a wonderful business to be in. Like, I'm very lucky. I get to travel all over the world to the best places, resorts, and of course there were stressful times, and of course it's been a hard road. And when I started swimwear business, it was something you bought a Speedo in the summer, and that was it. Once a year, you got your Speedo bikini or swimsuit, and that was your thing. And I've convinced that I converted swimwear to be an all-year-round resort luxury item, because we do go on holidays. And I remember when I moved to London, people were saying, swimwear in London? I was like, yeah, we have the worst weather, so everyone goes on holiday. Like, it was hard to convince people, but it ended up working. And now, most department stores around the world carry resort wear all year round. But it is a wonderful business. But I started at the bottom, and I slowly learned my mistakes, learned what was not working, and growing the business slowly. You know, from one country to the next country, learning who my clients were, who my competitors were, what they like, what colors, what sizes. And it's still like, I still haven't learned. I'm still learning every year. Things change. Like, the world is evolving so quick with everything. Like, you know, I learn as I go along each year, and I don't think I will ever know enough. But you just have to keep going and embrace all the new technology, et cetera, and it's a wonderful business.
Retail is a wonderful industry, I think, for that constant learning journey. How do you use that, SIMA, perhaps to bring in some fantastic talent?
You know, just bouncing off what Melissa said, it's actually a no-brainer. For me, if you're not academically inclined, and not having said that all of retail needs people who are people-driven or creative, etc. There are certain aspects of retail where you need a certain skill set, which is great, which is what I love about retail. I was asking my daughter, why do you love retail? And she said to me, because it's dynamic. It's dynamic, it's something that it can be from literally like from someone who loves people to creative to someone who wants to do the most amazing, insane AI software. So you need the whole gamut. And I think there's no other profession out there that is this versatile or this wide. When you say doctors and accountants, it's a narrow, tunnel-visioned field, whereas retail is across the board. So you could, and having said that, you could start off as a salesperson, end up as a CEO. Where else can you do that? I mean, you're a surgeon, you're a surgeon. Okay, there's a bandwidth. Here, there isn't a cap or a bandwidth. You could go anywhere from that. From, like Melissa said, either you end up working for the same organization or multiple organizations, get to travel around the world, and you maybe possibly get to create your own brand. Like, we have one of our stars from this country, Mona Katan, sitting here, Kayali. Like, out of the blue just comes Kayali. So I just think there is so much to achieve by working in retail. It really is an underdog of a profession. It's not glorified enough. So Mona and I are going to make it a mission to glorify it.
You're doing a fantastic job of that, both of you. Thank you. SIMA, how do you put that into the structure of the Apparel Group? You obviously have thousands of employees. How do you ensure they have the opportunities to progress throughout their career?
So we do have an amazing online learning platform that we hand out to all our employees, but we also have actually what's called AMP, which is the Apparel Management Program, where we actually graduate people from their positions to the next level up. Our senior leadership, it's mandatory for them to attend either Harvard, Stanford, INSEAD, or LBS, one of the courses from them. They take off 6 weeks from work and just go do a course there. So we believe in lifelong learning, and we just think you need to keep adding to your skill set if you want to stay relevant. We do it to ourselves, so we expect the same.
Perfect. Now, we're speaking very much about the internal organization and how important it is for that to reflect the customer base. How do you, as brands, and I know this is different, SIMA, you're representing brands owned by others. Melissa, you're representing the brand that you own, and Veronica, in the past, your own brands. How do you represent your brand and communicate it in a way to ensure that you don't fall victim to culture wars or to controversy or to put ill-conceived messaging out there? With social media, it's very quick to have come back if you say the wrong thing, show the wrong thing, even if not intentioned. Is that something, Melissa, that you're aware of, that you're concerned about?
I think all of us are aware of it. I think you have to be aware of every single thing you say today. And I mean, personally, I love women with curves. I think because I don't have curves, but I love women with curves. And I love that today we are embracing women with curves, like body shapes, different body shapes. I mean, I was a model when I was 19, and you had to be 5'10", you had to be this weight, you had to walk a certain way. And today, which is what I've always loved, is we are embracing everyone's body shape. And if you think about it, our clients, our shoppers, are all body shapes. So you have to understand who, like you were saying, who are your clients? Who are you actually catering for? And because I sell in different countries, I'm catering for all body shapes. And I embrace it, and I show it, and I make sure I have curvy models, and I make sure I have showing my collection on every body shape. And I sit in my store to learn what women want. And we want everything, but I sit in my store to see all the clients that come in, what they're looking for, and I'm learning, okay, I don't know, I've got big hips, I've got small hips, I've got large bust, I've got small bust, I've got shoulders, I've got this. And I design according to the demands. And like you were saying, you have to know who your clients are and diversify for every single shape out there.
We speak about shape and about nationality a lot. What about age?
You know what, I just did an article for Daily Mail, and they were saying, should women over 50 wear bikinis? So I have a very huge celebrity following. And from Christy Brinkley to Halle Berry, you name it, every A-list actress. And I put them all, and they're all over 50. Christy Brinkley just turned 70. Cindy Crawford, Elle Macpherson, they're all 60, like they're all up there. And they look incredible. So for me, there's no such thing as an age. It's about women having the confidence to wear what makes them feel good. You know, you go to Italy, and there's grandmas 80 years old wearing not string, but tiny bikinis. They're embracing, they don't care. They just want to get the suntan. And I think if we just gave women more confidence, you can wear your bikini until you're 90.
Here, here.
with
in Dubai all year round as well.
With a caftan on top, you know?
So
then drop the caftan.
SIMA, you're communicating brands. Essentially, you're a huge marketing agency, I suppose, for these incredible brands that the Apparel Group represents. How do you ensure that the messaging is true to this region, doesn't conflict with the mothership brand, shall we say? How do you manage that?
Honestly, it's really simple for us. We have one mantra. We do exactly what Dubai does. So to me, Dubai has always been apolitical. It's always been almost like, for want of a better phrase, the Switzerland of the Middle East. So whatever Dubai does, we follow. It's as simple as that for us, because we thrive on whatever policies and even just everything that Dubai comes out with, from a vision perspective to implementing our suggestions in the private sector. So the least we can do is speak the same tone or speak the same tune. So for us, whatever Dubai does, we follow. And we literally take that stance across. On another perspective, because we do have brands from the US, from Canada, from England, from France, we of course have to respect the brand's DNA. So we'll never go against what the brand stands for, but at the same time, we're very clear that we're here to satisfy our customers, to give you products that you want and don't need to travel for, and that's our main aim. We're not here. Yes, we're into societal benefits. Yes, through our CSR, through our employee engagements, through any of the other activities that we do, we care about where we exist, but we do not take political stances.
Can I just...
Please, Veronica.
because I really love that, and I just also very much love that campaign you shared. But I just wanted to add, because I built a brand that was super political. So I just wanted to add that perspective. And we had a huge shitstorm at some point. So maybe I'll just share a little bit about also when you are, and when I say political, of course, working with incarcerated women is political. And you need to explain how you do that, why you do that, and also historically and also today, in general, incarcerated people are being exploited and underpaid in prisons across the world. So we were not doing that. We were paying them a living wage and we were setting up systems, but it was easy to misunderstand because of the history and what is happening across the world. But we built our customer base as a political customer base, you could say. In a way, we started a brand at a time where we wanted to change every part of the supply chain of fashion and talk about what was wrong with that part of the supply chain and why it was difficult to change it, and come with our initiatives: no seasons, no sales, zero waste, recycling, diversity in all the casts, diversity in the ownership. And we took every part of that and communicated both, what we wanted to change, but also the process of trying to do it, because obviously it's not easy. So it's not like, oh, here we go, we're a sustainable, fixable brand, and you can just shop with us, and then the world is perfect. It's more about, these are the attempts and the processes. And when you do that, you take a political stance, because it is political to talk about what is not functioning, right? And a political stance also means that some people will disagree with you. So you need to be able to handle that as a brand. And I think, I just also want to say, I think there is a time right now where it's very difficult for all brands to stay apolitical sometimes. And we see that more and more with different conflicts happening in the world, where consumers are asking brands to take a stance and a position. And I think practicing that and understanding how you speak to your customers in an honest and transparent way will be a core strength going forward. And transparency is another aspect, right? Because it's a business trend. We're all going to somehow have to do it. But when you become transparent, you also open up for a lot of questions. So for example, we had a full transparent supply chain, including the wages for every woman. And when you speak about wage levels, even though you talk about living wages, which is only, 2% in the fashion industry is being paid, when you as a consumer see that and you don't necessarily understand supply chains, it still looks very wrong, right? We know that in the industry that the retail price doesn't reflect what the person who produces it gets, but if you don't understand that, it just looks really wrong. So we were fully transparent, but it also opened us and made us very vulnerable, and also meant that we had to engage a lot in education and communication. At the same time, it also meant that we built a very loyal customer base who also felt a little bit fed up with the systems we have, and then could resonate with the process of doing that. So I think there is a need and a room to do all of it. But I am also very much in favor of not necessarily being scared about opening up, but being prepared, because I think there is a room and a gap and a market for particularly younger customers who are looking for stuff like this.
And I did tell Veronica, I hate the idea of being up on stage with you, because I'm going to come across as this profit-grabbing entrepreneur, and Veronica's going to come across as this humanitarian saving the world. So I did warn you about that. So.
No, you are a role model, SIMA, for women and everything you do.
Thank you.
I'm very proud to be on this stage.
Thank you.
And also, SIMA, you may feel that you're apolitical, and I fully understand your stance, but also as a distributor for the Apparel Group and the other companies, your equivalent in this region, you play an important role in educating the rest of the world and those home brands and their territories about the community here, about culture here, about society. How does that relationship pan out? Even if it's not political, there is still an education piece going back to the brand from you about our society.
So honestly speaking, I have an amazing team, whether it's my marketing, whether it's my HR, whether it's my CEO, whether it's my GMs, my VPs, they all communicate, and we encourage open feedback. So when we do get open feedback, we do our thorough market research. Of course, we do communicate with the brands. Like, Skechers became by default, we didn't realize, but the shoe for Hajj, because they were the only ones that didn't put stitches on their shoes. They were gluing them. So suddenly, all our Emirati or our Arab customers started telling us that, we're using Skechers for that. Also, Inglot, at one point, we didn't declare it, but they came back saying the Inglot nail polish is breathable, so we can wear it whilst we pray. So these kind of things, we do give feedback to the brands. And I try my damnness, early on when we first started the company in the good old days where I don't know how many of you remember this, but Dubai used to be Thursday, Friday holiday. So Thursday, Friday holiday, and of course Friday promptly, one of our American partners would want a meeting or etc. And literally I know someone came out with a book called Don't They Know It's Friday? And I was like, you know what, we need to send this to every single Western partner we have to let them know, don't ask for Zoom calls on Fridays. But we did them because we needed them. So, as far as communicating what we stand for as a company or even as a culture is very clear. We make it very clear. A lot of our marketing campaigns are localized because we don't think the content that they provide us is up to the mark or even appropriate. Take Tim Hortons, for instance. Tim Hortons in Canada is almost like your Dunkin' Donuts in the US. It's a drive-through, a petrol station touch point. Here, it's an elevated cafe. I've had people messaging me on Instagram saying, why can't Tim Hortons in Canada look like the way it does in the UAE? I was like, go talk to them. Yeah. I wish we could do that for you, but go talk to them. So I think communication with the brand, establishing what we stand for, what the company stands for, as well as what we do around the region is extremely important. But it is a two-way dialogue.
Absolutely. Are they always receptive to your feedback?
85% of the time, yes. We're pretty strong.
The 15 we'll do off the record afterwards, shall we?
Definitely.
So we are coming to the end. I would just like to ask all of you, we are here under the panel title of Diversity and Inclusion and Equity, which is fantastic to speak about, but it would be so great to not speak about as well. What needs to happen so that we don't need to have this conversation? It's just a natural part of the industry. Where do we need to be in 5, 10 years' time to ensure that the conversation has moved on and we don't need to address these issues? Melissa?
Well, I think it's already being addressed. I think we're all moving forward very fast, and I think we've all taken it on board. And I mean, I know just from looking at Vogue how much it's changed in 2 years' time. And looking at everyone's campaign is all inclusive now, which didn't exist a few years ago. So I think we're moving, everyone's accepting it, which is very important, and we're moving with the times. And I think, like I said earlier, they are your clients, so why not include them in your campaigns, or why not include them in your storytelling? Because selling a product is storytelling. And I think it's important that your clients see how you got there and make your product that you're selling become a story and show them behind the scenes, show them what you're doing to move forward. And whether it's sustainability, whether it's giving back. I do a mastectomy swimwear line for women with breast cancer, and I donate all the proceeds because we need to embrace everyone, and it's about, supporting other women. That is so important, and helping women get to where they want, whether it's mentoring or showing them that anyone can start at the bottom and move on up. I think in 5 years' time, I mean, for sure, we'll have a women president. But other than that, I just think, if we would just support each other, we would do amazing things, women.
Absolutely. SIMA.
I have both my daughters in the business. So I think if that doesn't say something, then I'm not sure what they're doing out there. I just think that in 5 or 10 years, like you said, Louise, this shouldn't even be a conversation. Yep. It should just be a basic hygiene that every company does have. We're touching 37% women employed in Apparel Group. I'd love to see that go to 50 in the next couple of years. I just think if it's good for the customer and it's good for business, I don't understand what's stopping us. We've given enough, I think there are enough case studies out there to prove the point that it will benefit. Like, McKinsey did a case study where companies that do have diversity are 25% more likely to be profitable. How much more of a help or a reality check do you need? So to me, it's basic hygiene to have an equal leadership status as well as trickling downwards. And once that starts happening, it will become basic hygiene. It shouldn't be a topic at any summit or any conference.
We'll hold Gary to that in 5 years' time, very quickly.
I already threatened him with the women in retail. I said, I don't understand why we have that. Like, we didn't have a men in retail, so why did we have a women in retail?
This is another off-the-record one, SIMA. Just finally, Veronica, we'll leave you with the final word.
Okay.
How do we sort this situation? Save the world. You've got 30 seconds. Go.
Great. So I'll use my 30 seconds to say that I come from Denmark, and we are in the Gender Equality Index quite high up, and yet it's going to take 150 years with the trajectory we're on now to reach equality. So I think we are not close to getting there, to be honest. And I think we should be aware of that. And I think it's in the power layers. And if you want to kind of make some hoops and jumps, I think it's about the boardrooms, and I think it's about leadership. So if we can focus on that, that's the fastest way to get us there. I agree, we have the knowledge, we have the data, it should be a no-brainer. And the second thing I think we need to do is make sure that when we have these panels, men are participating. So we stop making these exclusive rooms. I think it's an important conversation. I would love to have it until we have reached a point where we don't have it anymore. But I would love to have men sitting here. I would love to have representation, because this is an agenda that belongs to all of us. So also just happy and grateful to all the men taking leadership sitting out there.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the wonderful panelists.